Good morning and welcome. Welcome once again, whether it is your first or your 101st, or you've lost count of how many times, welcome back to Fountain Street Church. I am the Reverend Matthew Cockrum, Minister of Spiritual Care and Practice in this congregation, and I use he, him pronouns. It is a pleasure and a privilege to serve in this great good place, alongside the rest of the staff here, as well as the leadership team, as well as you, to serve the mission and the ministries of this community for the wider world. This cathedral of love, this house of prayer for all people, exists not only for ourselves, but it does begin with us, though it is not about us. And so I am so glad to welcome you here today on this first Sunday after Easter, on the cusp of Ramadan, this Sunday where we begin to take a look at the implication of liturgical seasons, of how we measure time and growth and direction and purpose, and on what it might mean to move from spinning wheels of the year towards liturgies of liberation. So wherever you are in the seasons of your life, whether you are a new parent or newly bereft, or your life seems to be the same old, whether you are graduating or retiring, married or single, whoever you are, wherever you are on life's journey, come in. Come into this time of worship. Whether you are joining on Sunday morning or any other day or time of the week, come into this time. Come into this place, your place, where you meet and are met from wherever you are watching. And come into these people, seeking to grow our minds, free our minds, grow our souls, and change the world. Come in. Get centered, get decentered, get recentered. Come warm yourself by the common fires we kindle, we claim, and we carry. Come in.
We light these candles as a sign and a symbol of the light that brings us together. We light the candle of healing peace. And pray that healing peace may be nurtured in the hearts of those in this community and beyond these walls. We light the candle of love and compassion. And pray that love and compassion may be nourished in the hearts of those in this community and beyond these walls. We light the candle of justice. And pray that justice will be known in the hearts and experienced by those in this community and beyond these walls. And we light the candle of community. Praying that even when we are spread out from one another, we feel the light that burns within us and connects us to one another in our sacred community.
And now, friends, warmed by light and music, I invite you to join me for a few moments in silence to turn towards that which you find most holy, for prayer, for meditation, and for reflection. Most holy beloved, you who links all of us to each other and to all that is and was and will be. As we pause for these moments to try to still our minds and bodies, we notice how little stillness there truly is. Our breaths, our heartbeats, our fidgety bodies and thoughts. And so, if stillness is not possible, help us to find the motion that moves toward freedom, toward wholeness, toward justice. Help us as we feel the air moving in and out of our bodies, as we sense the blood pulsing through our being. Help us to claim and to be claimed by this movement. That we might be of greater use in this world. To these imperfect words, we add the silent intentions of our hearts. May our prayers be heard, may our hearts be restored, and may our hope be renewed. Shalom, salam, amen, and blessed be.
To everything turn, turn, turn. There is a season, turn, turn, turn. and a time for every purpose under heaven. A time to be born, a time to die, a time to plant, a time to reap, a time to kill, a time to heal, a time to laugh, a time to weep. To everything turn, turn, turn. There is a season, turn, turn, turn. And a time to every purpose under heaven. A time to build up, a time to break down, a time to dance, a time to mourn, a time to cast away stones, a time to gather stones together. To everything turn, turn, turn. There is a season, turn, 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 and a time for every purpose under heaven. A time to love, a time to hate, a time of war, a time of peace, a time that you may embrace, a time to refrain from embracing. To everything turn, turn, turn. There is a season, turn, 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 and a time for every purpose under heaven. A time to gain, a time to lose, a time to mend, a time to sow, a time for love, a time to hate, a time for peace. I swear it's not too late. To everything turn, turn, turn. There is a season, turn, 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 and a time to every purpose under heaven.
What time is it? You might want to look at your watch, but if you are a past member of the Fountain Street Chapel community, you're going to pull out this guy. It's our Wheel of the Year, and this calendar depicts the many seasonal, spiritual, and religious celebrations in our community and around the world. Right now, if you pull out the version that's in your discussion guide this morning, you'll see that we're about right here, where we've just finished the Easter season in the Christian tradition, Passover in the Jewish tradition, and we're about to start the season of Ramadan in the Muslim tradition. Part of what I loved so much about the chapel community and what I found so life-giving is that we found ways to incorporate all of these traditions into parts of our contemporary service, often using the greater themes celebrated through these traditions. For instance, this time that we just went through right now is a lot about sacrifice, letting go. And why I love using the Wheel of the Year so much is that you're also encouraged to add in your own celebrations and your own special times. And part of the reason that I was excited to explain that this week is this is the anniversary of my first time coming to Fountain Street Church. And I was reflecting back with Matthew on what a special time that was for me and what a safe harbor Fountain Street became for me back then when I had a small child and having a place where I could come and bring her and drop her off for an hour. The wheel has been part of my greater exploration to mark every moment as a reason to celebrate. Whether it's in January and it's a snow day and I get to stay home and bake cookies all day, or if it's in September and we're starting back services here at Fountain Street while I'm sipping on a pumpkin spice latte, even though it's probably still really warm outside. Leaning into these rhythms has provided me with a comforting structure to mark each passing week, and also helps me not to mourn joyful times like the end of summer. More than anything, the wheel encourages us to pay attention to what's happening around us. As I was writing my notes for this piece, I'm noticing that the birds around me were singing, and the fact that I could have my windows open. I put out a spring wreath today, and I put out the patio furniture out of storage. My nails got painted a pastel color that coincides with the eggs that I never got around to decorating this past Sunday. The tall boots may be put away for a few months, but right now it is iced coffee season, and that makes me really, really happy. So I urge you all to look at your Wheel of the Year and ask yourself, what time is it for you this week?
The spiral keeps on turning, we're listening and learning. Together the journey is home. The spiral keeps on turning, to claim our roots we're yearning. Oh Mother, the journey is home. The spiral keeps on turning, the flame of life is burning. Within us, the journey is home. The spiral keeps on turning, we're listening and learning. Together, the journey is home. Together, the journey is home.
What time is it? Helpful question. Thank you, Jackie. What time is it? And I would add to that two more questions, which if you've ever traveled, and if you were ever a child traveling or traveled with a child, you've either heard it, asked it, or both. Not only what time is it, but where are we going? And are we there yet? These questions, what time is it? Where are we going? And are we there yet? These are questions that liturgical calendars seek to answer, just like the wheel of the year. And yet, also, answers to these questions can be found carved into the very architecture of this building. If you look over the doorways as you enter, or at the cornerstone of this building, you will see some claims about where we are going, what we are pointing ourselves toward, what we are to be about, and how we can measure if we have arrived. And in some locations, the passcodes for entry are also indicators of where we are and of whether or not we've gotten there. What time is it? Where are we going? And when will we get there? I would argue that as a way to answer those questions and to seek continual engagement with those questions, using the wheels of the year is important, invaluable. And also, we have to be willing to let go. Letting go of when we think is the right time for things. Opening ourselves up to larger seasons, to patterns and themes in secular and religious traditions, but then also recognizing we are not in charge or control of how things turn out or when they occur. One story from my own life of realizing that I had to let go happened in one of the very few times that I've had an experience that I would call hearing the voice of God. It was the last semester of my time in seminary, and I was preparing to leave Chicago. And in the last 6 months of my time in seminary, I met this handsome man named Chad. And I wondered to myself, should I even be dating right now? I'm about to get a call to go serve a congregation somewhere. This is not the right time. Am I misleading him? What's wrong with me? And he had just moved to Chicago to be closer to his family. So one day, as I was feverishly turning these questions over and over in my head and my heart and driving up Lakeshore Drive in Chicago, I heard a voice that said to me, "You have to be willing to let go." And I thought, oh, okay, so I have to be willing to let go of Chad. That means I have to be willing to break up when the time comes to move. I can do that. And yet, 6 months later, when I received the call to serve the first congregation I served in Ogden, Utah, Chad packed up his belongings and moved with me. What I found I had to let go of was my definition of what I thought I was supposed to do. I had to be open to allowing some other rhythm to guide me, some other priorities, some other definitions of what was the right timing. And so too with us, I would say. Any wheel of the year calls us to decenter what we think we already know about how things should be and when they should occur, and to open up to something else, something larger. In that way, it is both about us and yet not about us at all. The wheel of the year that Jackie showed you, which you can see on your screen in the slides and in the discussion guide this week, was created and continues to be created by the Reverend Jason Hubbard, a dear friend and colleague and former minister in this congregation. It includes many different traditions, including the pagan cross quarters that you'll see in another slide, expanded upon, drawn in, using Western European traditions of paganism, earth-centered festivals. And it also includes, if you look at it again, festivals and traditions from secular culture. It invites us currently, as Jackie said, to be moving from a season of liberation into a time of reflection and going out into the world. Over the summer and into the fall, looking at how we might be out in the world, appreciating, moving outward and expanding. Now, part of why I'm inviting us to think about this right now is as your clergy team is starting to look ahead to next fall, as we're wondering what worship might look like on Sunday mornings, as we're looking at what kinds of programmings might be possible and what they would gather around, we're starting to consider whether a wheel of the year like this one might be useful to all of us. And it's not just about those holidays and practices that we inherit from our religious and secular traditions or from our cultures. It's also, as you'll see in your discussion guide, about what are those special moments like Jackie mentioned that we mark in our lives, anniversaries of occurrences. What are the traditions that are core to us, that mark who we are, times we were called out of ourselves or into ourselves more fully? What needs to be added to your wheel of the year to make it more about liberation? And what needs to be removed to make it less about staying stuck in what you think ought to be or should be? Whatever your cycle or liturgy is about in your life, it begs the question of how do you address the beginnings and endings in your life? The beginnings and endings of each day? The beginnings and endings of each life? It begs the question of how do you cultivate strength and resilience, both in terms of solitude, in relationship to community, in intimacy with Spirit, and with others? How do your practices help you strengthen your skills for advocacy, for allyship, and for engaging in the world of liberation? For if what is at the center of the wheel of our year is only ourselves, then it is insufficient. Rather, what must be at the center is this constant turning, this movement towards liberation. However you call that, whether it's freeing the mind and growing the soul and changing the world, or dismantling systems of oppression. What is the movement, the hub at the center of your wheel? For me, increasingly, it is becoming traditions from Judaism, which is part of my heritage and also part of what I'm reclaiming as I grow and deepen in my faith. As Jewish and queer, all of this calls me to engage in liberatory action in the world, not just for myself, but for all folks who are experiencing structures of injustice and oppression. It calls me to engage in racial justice work. It calls me to engage in gender justice work. It calls me to engage in earth justice work, and to begin to ask questions about the distribution of wealth and resources, about our country's embodiment of capitalism, and about emerging legislation about voter access and issues of justice and inclusion. It also calls me to recognize that these are not new issues, though they may look like new and unique embodiments. But the gift of a wheel is it reminds us that some of these questions are getting turned over and over, generation after generation, cycle after cycle. And though we may need and get times of rest, it is necessary to remember the work continues. And we can learn from our ancestors and prepare to be good ancestors ourselves. Following a wheel of the year means surrendering to an ongoing learning process of continuing to ask how we participate in cycles of oppression and liberation, how we benefit from them, how we can interrupt them. So what would it look like if you put at the center of your wheel of the year issues of liberation? What would seasonal and secular holidays look like to you? Veterans Day, Mother's Day, Easter, festivals of light and darkness, Ramadan. What would your wheel of the year look like if the spokes that came out of the center each led to some footprint of justice making in the world? What practices are you cultivating as you celebrate and commemorate? What awarenesses are you developing? What relationships? And do all of those support the status quo and the ways of the marketplace? Or do they challenge it, change it, and challenge and change you in the process? Whether it means taking a day of Sabbath, turning off your screens, eating around a table by candlelight, pausing long enough to recognize the blessing of the food and the drink before you, as well as the companionship of those gathered around you. Or whether it is a day of study and contemplation. How does your wheel offer you opportunities to re-center what you value and how you value? To put it another way, I like to think of it as queering the calendar, which is to say, asking the questions of whose interests are being served by how and what I celebrate. How does my celebration uphold what is called to me normal and natural? And how might it question that, challenge it? How am I participating in liberation for myself and for others? All of these questions. What time is it? Where are we going? Are we there yet? In the wake of the events of the insurrection in our capital this January, I found myself, along with my clergy colleagues, stating, I commit to dismantling systems of oppression in myself and in the institutions where I serve. And as I wrote and said those words, I felt a heat rising up in my body, a tingling, even as I feel it now as I recount it. It was frightening. It was powerful. It was a reminder that I need to move beyond what is comfortable and move into areas of disquiet. I need to recognize that even as a queer man, I am still privileged as a man, and a white man at that, and privileged by race, and privileged by class. That even as I work towards liturgies of liberation, I must look at my own life, its rhythms, its patterns, and recognize many parts of it support white supremacy culture. Many parts of it support traditional patriarchal forms of power. So what time is it? It's time to let go some things and take up others. It's time to consider grieving, accepting, taking responsibility. It's time to talk more and more openly, honestly, and vulnerably about power and privilege. It's time to recognize the responsibility to leverage liberation in the face of fear and trembling, especially when it feels like it's not the right time. In times like these, friends, we need to ask ourselves, what time is it? Where are we going? Are we there yet? We need to receive those answers, hold them loosely, and when the time comes to move forward, to let go. To let go. Here's to the journey, my friends, and here is to the work. Friends, each week as we gather, we take moments to pray, moments to listen, moments to praise and sing. And we also take moments to have an opportunity to practice generosity. Each week, the offering is received that you bring that helps sustain this community and all of its ministries in the broader world. As Mary Allen Walden once put it, this church is a community of ourselves. Its energy and resources are our energy and resources. Its wealth is what we share. So when we contribute to the life of this community, we also affirm our lives within it. I invite you then to take a moment to consider how you might practice generosity, both through this offering and the options on your screen and elsewhere in your life. Thank you for your generosity.
My love, she frets, she fights with me when rainy days come pouring down, and she won't sing so joyfully. Dry, dusty days come blowing round, and she won't do what I would do if I don't know right where I'm bound. All I can ask is show me where to pass through. A gentle touch, a sweet caress, she whispers, I got what it takes. And like a gambler with his dice, I always play for higher stakes. Without a net, without a plan, a blessed melody awakes. All I can ask is show me where to pass through. My love, she frets, she fights with me, and I'm the one who's always wrong. For she knows not but what I give, she only echoes on my song. If I don't play with all my heart the tune she sings, it comes out wrong. My fiddle knows for sure what others only guess, it's in the heart.
Friends, it has been so good to be together with you on this day. I hope that you will consider other opportunities coming up to connect with this community, whether that is joining in the deepening experience by Zoom immediately following this service. There should have been a link in your email, or you can connect through social media and the website. Our weekly deepening experience is a short social time followed by opportunities for small group conversations. So if you'd like to participate in that, I hope you will. You can stay in touch with us through our website, and I encourage you to stay in touch not only with your staff, but also with the governing board and other leadership of the church, continuing to share your hopes, your dreams, your questions, and your concerns. Of course, we have ongoing experiences such as Let's Talk with Greta Joe on Monday nights, which provide opportunities to continue to explore issues of justice and liberation. Let's Walk with Christopher, one-on-one appointments, and spiritual wellness check-ins with me that have now been moved to Tuesdays and Sundays. And as always, we invite you to join us for our weekly midweek worship service, The Grounding, on Wednesday nights live at 6:30 by Zoom. What time is it, friends? It is time to continue to do the work, to de-center ourselves and to recenter, to look for the patterns of our lives and our priorities. So friends, may life bless you and keep you. May the light of life shine upon you and out from within you and be gracious to you and grant you peace. For this is the day. This is the one wild and precious life that you've been given. So let each one of us find some way to rejoice in it and to be glad. Go in peace, make peace, and practice love.
Well, I've got my hands on the gospel plow. I wouldn't take nothing for my journey now. Keep your hands on the plow of God. Hold on. Keep your hands on the gospel plow. Now Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, all them prophets, they be dead and gone. Keep your hands on the plow of God. Hold on, keep your hands on the gospel plow. I don't know, but I've been told the streets of the heavenlies are made of gold. Keep your hands on the plow of God. Hold on, keep your hands on the gospel plow. Now the Jordan, a river, she be deep and wide, and there's my Savior on the other side. Keep your hands on the plow of God. Hold on, keep your hands on the gospel plow. Well, I got my hands on the gospel plow. I wouldn't take nothing for my journey now. Keep your hands on the plow of God. Hold on, keep your hands